everybody. Welcome to Outlawed Thoughts, episode 56. Dalai Lama tongue-sucking drama and other shenanigans. That was going to be the title. I thought it was a little bit too wordy, so we went with the Lama drama. But, yeah, I got a bunch of stuff to talk about tonight. I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of random stuff as per usual. I've got to open up this email here where I've got some, stuff for the show, the links, because I was unprepared and late as usual. This show was supposed to happen an hour and a half ago, so I do
Yeah, what the
apologize
heck,
to
man?
people. Yeah, it was unfortunately got kind of messed up with going to the store, and I haven't even cooked yet. I still got to make lasagna.
Man, if there was only a law.
Jesus. So we have some fun stories to talk about, some not so fun stories to talk about, some wood chipper stories to talk about. It's a good little mix. I do want to talk about so I have a show coming up here soon in the works, which will be really cool. Some people will know what I'm referencing. I'm not going to mention the name. I'll put it in the private chat for Kareem here, so he's not clueless. But I'm going to be having the biggest guest. Well, yeah, the biggest guest I've had on the show to date will be on hopefully by the end of this month. So it is exciting for sure. And it's somebody I'm actually excited to talk about. It's not a political guest per se, but I'm sure we will chat a bit about politics. And what's up to the regulars here? We got JC and Benzo Barbie in the chat. JC, I posted a picture on Twitter of a knife that I have. I know you're into knives. That I got my brother one of those for his birthday as part of his birthday present, and I ended up buying myself one too. It's this dinky knife made from, I think they're Chinese, but it's made from this company called Ned Foss, which is like non-existent. It's like a no-name knife company, but it's this ingenious contraption that is in this like leather case that allows you to connect. It's like a pocket knife, and then you can connect these metal prongs to it that turn it into a slingshot. And it's wild, dude.
You know what? That sounds very Krav Maga of you, Mr. Layton.
No, it's fun. I gave one to him because it'd be interesting, for the kids, younger kids. That's always fun. Although at this point he's old enough he can have a hand cannon if he wants it. I just have to have the money to buy it for him.
Violence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a budget brand for sure. But it had good reviews. Everybody on YouTube and the Amazon stuff seemed to like it. And it's now that I got it in my hand, it's built like any other M-Tech knife, but a little bit better. So something a little bit better than that, but not quite by much. Yeah, so I had a great episode here last few days ago here with Tyler Yonke. We went over the Trump indictment and that whole thing. I'm hoping to have him on again here soon. I know there's a couple people that would probably like me to have him on to talk about the Foster shooting and that whole thing that's been rehashed into the news. I did go ahead and go read into the court docs and whatever I could get my hands on and some summaries from some people I trust in the legal space. Um, that's a really tough case, and people keep drawing very quick conclusions on the internet that really piss me off. I've seen I've seen people basically saying that he was completely justified in shooting him, which I think is probably technically true. Which I also think pisses off a whole nother subsect of libertarians who are like, well, this guy was a boog boy and all this shit. But the reality is from what I've seen, and this is sort of a reverse Rittenhouse situation. In Rittenhouse, we knew the evidence was in the trial. So it was just as long as his lawyers could get that evidence presented to the jury, we knew that he would get off. Anybody who watched that trial knew that that was the ultimate goal. In this guy's case, it appears like there were key pieces of evidence that were excluded before the trial took place, which paint a much different picture than what was painted to get this guy convicted. And I've seen that stuff, which has led me to the conclusion that this is much less cut and dry than people said. I do think this guy probably needs to be pardoned. I'd say he should be. In my opinion, you can't, even if this guy is guilty in some way of shooting him in some way where he wasn't gesturing to him or he didn't actually feel like he was scared, whatever, which I don't buy for a second. I think this guy was absolutely scared for his life, things like that. You can see by just the description of what happened. So to me, it's like a really weird case that everybody's trying to come up with very simple answers for when there really aren't any. It appears to me this was bad on both sides, and that what happened was just a tragedy of the mistakes made on both sides. And so I don't really think punishing somebody in that situation is going to do anybody any good. And
No.
so they've thrown this guy in jail, which is going to make him some kind of martyr politically. I think it's better that they just fucking forget that this ever happened and move on.
Mhm.
But of course, the media loves this shit. So
Yeah, that's the problem.
yeah, exactly.
Well, the media perpetuates a narrative, and then people go with that narrative, and it becomes the dominant, I guess, talking point. Like, oh well, CNN said this, and
Right.
this.
Yes.
Even people ask me, "Do you watch the news?" I'm like, I do not watch the news because that's where people pick up these narratives, and they're like, "Haven't you seen this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't, and I know where this is coming from, and I know the agenda behind this. So why would I trust this?" So,
Correct take. Both were wrong and acted badly. Yeah. So that's been sort of. I mean, I said that in the group chat to an extent. One of the group chats I'm in, but when I looked at it, I was like, okay, so Foster is certainly maybe pointing that firearm at people at times, and that definitely happened at some point. There's evidence of that was not allowed into the trial. But at the same time, when the event happened, um, what was led into the trial was that the gun was low ready, and he was next to the vehicle. That what happened. The shooting happened after that.
mhm.
Um, I saw a lot of people saying that this was done with like a Glock or a semi-automatic gun. It turns out it wasn't. It was a revolver, which I think is an interesting, um, uh, you know, was just something I didn't ever see reported. So that was interesting to find out. The
Okay.
whole thing is a weird. The whole thing was weird in the sense that I don't think this guy ever should have really been charged, and I think the reason he was charged is because of political issues, because of
Probably.
the person he shot, even though he might have been a libertarian and not exactly directly connected to the people who were protesting at the time, he was connected enough that he was protected by whatever political class in that area. So it's a weird situation, and I don't like it all the way around. And I think that both parties fucked up, and it led to one person dying and one person sitting in jail until it can get fixed. So it's like, I don't think there's anything more of a take I'm gonna have on it. But I wanted to talk about it because I know it's been on Twitter and everybody's talking about that drama.
Yeah.
But the main stories I've got for today is I've got the Dalai Lama tongue sucking drama. I've got this JCC PD officer who shot his sergeant, who has now reported that he thought he was going to be raped, and after seeing the camera footage, I actually believe him. So we're gonna go over that, which is a fucking insane story. Um, I know
What
several
about?
people knew him. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't. Yeah. I've met people online who knew him, but I never. He was in Travis County, LP in Texas. Okay. Yeah, I mean everybody I have talked to in like the Boog adjacent community who was
Who could Jason?
knowledgeable of him, said he was a really good guy, and I believe him. But
Yeah.
it doesn't change the fact that you went
There's
out there
political
and
biases. That's the issue, and it's very clear.
right.
People can say there's no political biases, but there's political biases all the time. and everybody's biased. Like, I don't believe inherently in object, because there's no such thing as objective when you're analyzing stuff, because your brain,
Wait a minute, Kareem. Kareem, are you saying that objective and subjective reality are two different things?
maybe.
You know why I'm making that joke, right?
Yes.
Kareem had a debate recently on his show, and I was in the chat for it.
Yeah, I was trying to talk to you. You said it would go how I thought it would go, and I said, "How did you think it went?" And you didn't answer. I'm like, "God
Oh, I
damn!"
did. I did too. I was replying to Harrison. I didn't realize I was replying to you, so it screwed me up. But no, I expected it to be sort of this one person being fairly coherent and the other person sort of yelling and rambling about how it's all dystopian, and that's what I got. It
I'm
wasn't
friends with
very.
both of them. I'm friends with both of them. They have different ways of communicating.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I still think, and I'll say this, and I still think anybody who's watching this who knows me will agree with me. If that's coalition building, I want no part of it.
Well, here's the thing.
Because
Here's the
that
thing.
was, it has nothing to do with you. But that's the type of shit that keeps me away from these quote internet debates. Because I did formal debate. Like I sat there and did the whole two-step process and that whole thing. So when I see these internet debates where it's like a guy just screaming his head off, and no offense, but the stuff that he's saying isn't very intelligent to the point, especially the part about Misesian stuff, which was completely off the fucking rails. Um, so I don't know. It is my take. I would like to have Harrison on to talk about his side of that. I want to talk to him about the AI thing just further because I need somebody to bounce off stuff about that.
Interesting. Well, I thought it was a good debate.
Oh, I enjoy the spectacle. Yeah, and it was a good debate because it was a good show. You had people in the chat and it had an active audience. People were enjoying it. It's what you need to do. Again, I'm very particular about internet debate stuff. I either like the blood sports stuff where it's more combative and people are being assholes to each other and going back and forth and being witty. I can really enjoy that stuff. Or I like a more formal back and forth official sort of setup. That to me was sort of somewhere in between. So it's hard for me to like grasp onto it completely, but I think there were parts of it, especially the last like 30 minutes, that I really, really liked. That's why I
Yeah.
was in the chat. I wouldn't have been watching it. And I watched most of it. I missed the first like 15 minutes.
Woo! Hey, no, you're good. You got. Hey, thanks for supporting the homies, homeboy. Um, what I will say is,
Yeah, I saw JC in that chat too.
yeah, JC. Oh my God, hi. Uh, yeah, people are biased, and unfortunately, when crimes happen, there's always a bias, and they're like, oh, we want this to fit a narrative, or if it doesn't, how can we
Right.
make it how can we spin it to fit a narrative anyway? So I would
Yep.
say this: self-defense is self-defense. If you have to defend yourself, you have to defend yourself, and that's just what it is. And
Well, and it's a great example of I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, you know.
yes, correct.
So it's like I'd rather go to a trial than be in a body bag any day of
Yes,
the fucking week.
yep, yeah,
So
because
let's start with I want to start with this story because this is the main like headline here. So this is Dalai Lama asks little boy to suck
yeah,
his
that news
thumb.
fucking creepy.
So I have this video. This is about a minute long, and this is censored. I do not really want to play this video because I find it very creepy.
Yeah,
So
it's
what
creepy as
I
shit.
am
Man.
going
Why
to
are you doing?
do is I am going to skim this. This is the whole exchange, right? He grabs this kid out of the audience. I can't remember his age. I think he's 7 or 9, one of the two. Um, and he asks him to uh he asks him and murmurs a couple things, but the thing that's very legible is "suck my tongue," which is he kisses the kid, and this is the fucking still image that I've seen going around. So, my take on this. Uh, I am writing about this story about Kristen Snyder, who is this girl who went missing over here in Alaska, and then committed suicide out here in the town that I live in. Uh, she was connected to this cult called Nexium, and the cult was ran by this guy named Keith Rainier, as well as the heiresses to the um, Seagrams alcohol empire. They're the same girls who were helping out Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So they were best friends with the owner of the Anchorage Daily News, which is the largest newspaper in the state of Alaska. They were friends with a bunch of politicians and people in this area. And they operated one of their cults, the Nexium cult, one of their 4 places they operated in the U.S. at the time, out of Anchorage, Alaska. They ran it out of a shell, and it was under the guise of being a coaching service to become a manager, but it was actually this Nexium thing. Keith Rainier was involved with that, and that's where Kristen Snyder went missing. Anyway, this goes to the fact that through researching Nexium, I came along a little tidbit, which is the fact that one of the reasons that Nexium started gaining traction and actually gaining notoriety was because they had somebody basically sign off on them publicly. And can you guess who that person was? It was the Dalai Lama, who went and hosted one of the Nexium events in the early 2000s, met with people and had food and partied with everybody. And um, the guy, they call him the gateway to the Dalai Lama, okay? The Dalai Lama has this person who's like his dignitary and like a helper, right? Well, he was fucking a member of Nexium who also happened to be a CIA asset. Um, the Dalai Lama is not the Dalai Lama. And then people will say, what do you mean? Well, I mean, literally. Like, he is supposedly in the religion, supposedly this chosen figurehead, but he wasn't. If you look into the history of it, it was another guy who has now passed away. I believe he passed away about 7 or 8 years ago. Um, but he is quite literally a religious plant. He's also ancient and losing his mind. So it doesn't surprise me that his sexual tendencies are coming out live on television. And I've seen a bunch of people online talking about how this is some traditional Tibetan greeting and oh, this and that. I don't give a fuck what it is. He knows better than to do that on air, certainly. And the reason that he's doing it on air is because he's gone fucking senile like the President of the United States. So just like the hair sniffing takes place, the tongue sucking takes place. This is no different. It's sign of what they are behind closed doors. And they're no different than the Epsteins of the world, or the Keith Rainiers who led Nexium, or their many cult followers who still exist and are walking free today. So that's the take on that. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, well, Nexium I do believe was funded by the Rothschilds, and
Yeah.
which are like, I actually used to be that bad where I'm like, hey, guys, they're like, don't invite Kareem to stuff. I'm like, why? Because he'll go on about
I
how the
love that, Pinzo,
Rockefeller.
of course you are educated on Nexium. You're gonna love my next like doc video then, because it's an interesting piece on
Yeah,
it.
because I used to be real bad. I'm like, the Rothschilds created everything. They created Israel, the Balfour Declaration. They control. They're shape shifting lizards, and they're at the top of the cabal, at least in human form. And then there's demonic.
JC, are you ready for the real? You ready for the real Illuminati pill? Here's the thing, though, right? So you go. The CIA has also infiltrated the Catholic Church for a long time and many other organized religions. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Here's the question. You know who else likes to infiltrate religions? That's the Masons. Huh. I wonder if the CIA and the Masons have any commonality.
No. Yeah, they don't go to lodge meetings. Now, I do know some Masons who are good people.
I know some CIA guys who are good people too.
No, that doesn't exist.
They exist. They're
No, they
just
don't.
really
No, they
old.
don't. No, they don't. There's no CIA that's good people. Bricks is all bad.
It
And
depends on what you mean by good people.
people
Like, what
who,
makes a good person?
I don't know, someone who follows the NAP, like, kind of okay.
Yeah, but so then you think, like, what? 99% of the earth are bad people?
I don't know.
Like, that's a pretty bad law. I'm just trying to get to some.
Okay, I didn't say well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't go around extorting and beating people up. And
You gotta remember that the CIA, before it was the CIA, was the OSS. And the OSS was around during a time where the OSS was not nearly as evil, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, was nowhere near as evil as the traditional CIA that we as libertarians recognize as being the entity it is.
But you
It
know
was
why?
formed out of more desperation than anything else.
Correct. But you know why? Sting sent them out quite a lot. Sting and the police sent them out. I'm sending out an OS. And
Oh,
I quoted
sending out an SOS. I have that on vinyl.
Nice. Can I get that from you? I'll like do some Joe Vogler audio thingies on Fiverr.
I have a ton of vinyl that I sort through and figure out what's still decent and what's trash now.
I'll trade you vinyl for guns or something. Or weed.
I can bring especially when I move, I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with all of it. I've got like, cause there we're only a few thrift shops down here where I live, so I always used to just regular them, and I'd always buy up all the good albums. And then one year I went up to yard sale with my dad up in Anchorage, and some old guy was cleaning out his like son's like mother-in-law cottage, and he had like a whole fucking wood pallet full of records, and it was all good shit. Like it was all stuff throughout the like 60s to 80s, and so it was all the best stuff. So I kept that collection and like picked through it and put everything that's said. Ever since the Mulvaney commercial, Leighton has put away his Budweiser poster in shame. No, the Budweiser poster is in the drawer. Actually, it might even be in this drawer.
Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh, it's in the other cabinet. But yeah, I still have those posters. I actually took them down to do the Joe Vogler documentary. I didn't want to have those in the background for that. So I put the blacklight posters back up from the old setup, and then I just sort of liked the way it looked. So I've kept those. And soon what I'll have behind me is like wanted posters and stuff. That'll be the finished product until I move over to Florida or wherever. So I want to move on here from the Dalai Lama stuff. That stuff's gross. Wood chippers all around.
Yeah, wood chippers. But keep in mind, he's like low level stuff, like the high cabal people.
Well, I mean, the Dalai Lama has certainly a lot of power in the area that he's at. He has a lot of religious sway.
Also, one thing is, I do not like organized religion, as you can tell.
Neither do I.
I'm the kind of guy who's getting Reiki sessions and telling you EMF's bad, Leighton. You got to get some Chunganite and worry about EMF and tell people about seed oils and be a crazy, like hippie dude, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I just think organized religion is very good at manipulating people based on their behavior and not using their consciousness. So anyway.
So this is San Jose Police Union executive fired for drug smuggling scandal.
Woo!
The San Jose Police Officers Association fired its executive director in the wake of a drug smuggling scandal, union officials told Cron for Friday. Joanne Marion Segovia, 64 years old, was accused by federal prosecutors last week of illegally importing synthetic opioids, including fentanyl, to her San Jose home. Segovia is charged with an attempt to unlawfully import Valoronal if convicted. She faces a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. According to the Office of the United States Attorney, Segovia ordered thousands of opioid used the police officers' union's address for some mailing transactions and redistributed drugs across the country. San Jose Police Officers Association announced Friday that it completed the first phase of its internal investigation into Segovia and terminated her employment. This is the girl right here. So, to understand what she was doing, I'm going to explain this very simply. She was buying fentanyl overseas, having them ship it through UPS, and she was she was making it in like fake makeup and fake different items to make it appear like they were real, so they would pass through the screening process. That's what they used to do with weed seeds, by the way. So that was what she was doing to ship this stuff off. She was using mail heads from the fucking police union office, which is just insanity to me. So this is
Yeah, well, this is funny. First of all, I think this is funny as heck. To me,
Yeah.
maybe I have a messed up sense of humor, and I fully admit I do.
Well, I certainly don't think it's funny that this same girl is going to be involved with like the process of locking a bunch of people up for using
That's
drugs
bad.
that she's
That's
putting
bad.
on the street.
That's
Before
bad.
the scandal broke, Segovia was known as the grandma of the POA. Union President Sean Union President Sean Britchard, the abhorrent criminal conduct alleged against Miss Segovia must be the impetus to ensuring our internal controls of the POA are strong and that we enact any changes that we could have identified the alleged conduct sooner.
Oh my god. Here. First of all, my take is this is kind of funny because I have a messed up sense of humor. Aside from that, I think this is another reason just to say, look, if we end the drug war, we won't have incidences, in my opinion, like this. Because as bad as these substances are, if you make them legal, then you're not
Right,
going to
but
have
here's
the
my
police.
problem. Here's
What?
my problem. Drug war goes away, fine, that's okay. This woman still used her power as an official elected through tax dollars by people in some way. This to me is honestly, in a way, treason. Like if you were viewing this from the actual like complete standard, you would say, okay, well you have knowingly taken money from every single American who pays taxes because you are going to have to use money to pay cops and to pay people to deal with the problem that she's created. Now you can say, well, if drugs were legal, that wouldn't be a problem. Well, kind of, but the drug she was smuggling, fentanyl, really isn't an issue of addiction. It's an issue of fentanyl right now is pushing people into homelessness. It's pushing people towards more robberies and more thefts and those kind
You're
of
just
things.
killing them. Like,
Well, on top, right, and
yeah.
that too.
Yeah,
So
I'm not okay. Just to qualify this, I'm not an advocate for anybody doing any kind of drugs except a little bit of caffeine and here and there.
by the way, JC is dropping absolute fucking bombs in the chat. If we end the drug war, maybe Mike Cernovich will stop getting high and getting blown out by Asian trannies.
Oh God,
That is
there's
a very
something I
true
put.
statement. Mike
There's,
Cernovich is a bottom bitch, to put it
you know what's
quite
funny?
bluntly.
It's all these like, I'm a traditional conservative guy. I believe in family values,
Yeah,
and
he's
then it's like,
another he's another he's another cuck wearing dildo taking conserva cuck.
yeah, which is so funny. Half of these guys are like, oh my God, these values are abhorrent.
At least he has the balls. Dare I say, takes the balls to not only to not simply let your wife or girlfriend or significant other get fucked by another man while you watch and jerk your little dick off, but instead he has the wherewithal to take it in the ass. So he's yeah. Let's see.
Yes, we salute you, sir.
He's to each their own, bud. I don't know. Better out than in, I always say.
I guess it depends. I guess it
That's a
depends on your
Shrek
perspective.
reference. That's a
That'll
Shrek.
do, donkey. That'll do.
The other story I have here is fucking hilarious.
All
This
right. Well,
involves
at least, Leighton, it wasn't edibles because those are super dangerous and those should be banned. And weed is terrible.
do you know what tweet that me and JC are referencing from Cernovich recently?
Oh, I know.
So he put up a tweet basically saying that prohibition was a good thing and that banning alcohol was great. And he even responded to like Top Lobster and people with like he wouldn't obviously isn't going to have an intellectual discussion about it. He just wants to shit
Say
post.
something stupid. Yeah.
Well, Cernovich is the king of that because he can't have any serious opinions because if he does, everybody just brings up his past. Because, again, it's sort of the Nick Fuentes effect. When you've said so much horseshit and done so much horseshit, it makes it really hard to defend the things that you do get right. Now, there's a sort of fine line I ride with that where I like to be very humorous. People will see me posting in towers with the Tower Gang and spelling out very nefarious words that you can't utter on the internet, and doing nefarious trolling acts, things like
Yeah, I
that, or
think you have
whatever they want
to
to.
embrace that's kind of why I'm a little bit goofy because you have to embrace that if you're going to be on the internet and do personality stuff like that. That's why I think
The
like
way I see it, if people are hating on you, you're doing something right.
yeah, well, to me, like here's the thing: you can't like they're like cancel culture. This if someone talks bad about you, your points. You know what's funny? You can't cancel Alex Stein. They've tried. You can't say it like, oh well, I disagree with his points.
Alex Stein, who just asked Laura Trump about anal live on his show. I don't know if you saw that. That was
Oh no, things are getting really bad. These people need. I think the conservative cucks need Jesus or something.
Oh God. Well, okay. So this is the next story I got. This is.
Well, I'm actually curious about that too. What did she say?
Which one? What are you talking about?
Alex Stein.
Oh, I can't remember. I saw the clip a few days ago.
This is my wife's boyfriend, Don Terrius.
We'll bring this up here and react to this story.
About the moments just before a James City County police officer shot his sergeant outside a Williamsburg bar.
Michael Rusk is facing charges in connection to that January shooting, which seriously hurt Sergeant Christopher Gibson. Investigators initially said the two officers got into a fight after a night of drinking. But as 10 Exercise Julie Millay learned, the shooting might have been about much more than a bar fight.
Yeah,
Julie?
Tom and Amy investigators simply said the two officers.
Rape. That is the much more. The much more is rape. I don't know if I'm the only one who finds this humorous, and this is the kind of humor
No,
that
I
I'm
find
talking
it
about.
humorous too.
But
I
I want you to understand that they're about to transition from this chipper old fuck who just like has something else. and I'm going to play this little part again, to just them describing an assault, murder, and possible rape.
You know what? I mean, I like people on the news media when they're defending their guys. They're like, well, someone had some possible allegations brought up.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of like, here, sugarcoat this, keep sugarcoating it. You know what that officer should have done? He should just be like, hey, can you suck my tongue? You know, be nice.
About much more than a bar fight.
Yeah, Tom and Amy investigators
Really,
said
Julie?
the two officers involved in the shooting were known to each other. Now we're learning what that might really mean. The alleged shooter, Michael Rusk, says he pulled the trigger in self-defense because of unwanted advances by his sergeant. We're about to share exclusive surveillance video and the 911 call from the shooting, which we played for Michael Rusk's family for the first time.
Would you like to hear it?
I'd love to hear it.
For the first time, Jason Rusk is hearing the 911 call his son made in the early morning hours of January 25th.
I shot Sergeant Gibson. Do what? I shot Sergeant Gibson. I pulled a gun on him because he's advancing on me. Is he breathing? He just fell out.
James City County police officer Michael Rusk called 911 after he allegedly shot his superior officer, Sergeant.
All right. Now, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but that guy's face looks like the face of a guy who would maybe try to rape another cop. I'm just going to say it.
What?
All right. If you showed me a series of photos and went, hey, which one of these guys do you think would try to do that? This would be the face. If you asked me to make a caricature, by the way, this guy looks like the dude from Arrested Development that loses his fucking hand. Okay, that's who he looks like. What is that character's name? I can't remember. For
You
the
get concerned. Come on, man. They're putting their lives on the line every day.
Oh god.
Yeah, but he does look like the guy from Arrested Development. He's like, hey, big boy. Is that a gun in your pocket?
I gotta find the fucking cast for this. So that I can bring up a photo of that guy.
A gay cop porno.
No, so yeah, this guy's claiming
Your rights will be held against you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so yeah, this guy is a character. The whole thing basically, we're gonna see the camera footage here, which goes over some of it.
Is he like Mr. Garrison? He's like, hey, hey, everybody.
Christopher Gibson outside a Williamsburg bar where the two had been drinking together. Video given exclusively to 10 on Your Side shows the two officers before this happened.
Now, once
I shot him with his right arm. Okay, I need you to take a deep breath for me, okay?
oh, that was what the sergeant was about to say to him. All right, deep breaths. Ready?
Breathing. Is he breathing? I'm trying to save his life.
The 911 call goes on for just over 5 minutes. That's when responding officers show up to find Gibson had been shot 3 times.
Oh, that's right. This guy isn't even dead. What am I talking about? I'll make as much fun about this fucker as I want.
Seriously hurt in his stomach and shoulder. Court documents show Gibson told officers Rusk shot him after a verbal argument. But Rusk, his dad, and his lawyers say it was much more than that.
You know, it started to get creepy.
Jason Rusk says his son told him about unwanted attention he got from his superior officer.
I don't know, Kareem. Do you think this guy would give you unwanted attention? Does he look like the type of man who would do that?
No.
Come on.
Leading up to the shooting, and that he had reported it to others on the force.
There was a year's worth of grooming that had taken place.
Rusk says his son is the victim of unwanted sexual advances and had been for a long time.
Extremely inappropriate touching, stalking, the grooming, the previous to the incident assaults.
We reached out to Gibson several times to ask him about these allegations. He declined to speak with us. We also requested from JCCPD a record of any complaints
They just emailed him. Hey, just wanted to check in. Did you try to fuck this guy?
filed against Gibson during his time there.
You
They were denied.
try to
The video
have
shows the
sexual
officers at the
So
bar
watch
prior
this
to the
footage,
shooting.
though.
You
This
can
is
see
why I
them
believe
sitting
the
across
guy.
from each other at the start. Then you'll see Gibson move in to sit next to Rusk. Gibson reaches for Rusk's hand under the table, which seems to be met with hesitation from the younger officer. Then, just about an hour before the shooting, the two are seen leaving together. After Gibson puts his hand on Rusk's shoulder, you see Rusk forcefully push him off and put a finger in his face before walking away. We don't know what happened next, but after the shooting, Rusk makes this claim to the 911 dispatcher.
I told him this zombie kept going.
JC.
Help me. Help.
If our client was a female, this case would be drastically different.
Rusk's lawyer says the video and 911 call make a clear case for self-defense.
Anyway, I do think it looks like this cop's probably going to get off based off the footage and stuff.
Oh, he definitely got off.
Yeah, I know. There's an hour where we don't have camera footage, so they might have both got off.
Yeah, he's like, oh boy, did you write that guy a ticket for speeding? Oh boy, yeah, I did. This is getting creepy. Well, what if he liked it though, and then he shot him?
Well, that's.
I love depriving people of their Fourth Amendment rights by searching their car. Yeah, me too.
Oh God. Well, it's one of those fucking. It's one of those It's one of those cases I saw pop up on my fucking feed that I was like, oh God, I gotta talk about this. This is too good.
Do you think maybe he'll apologize and they'll, try and get?
Oh, they'll be married by the end of the year.
Yeah. You think we could get to the wedding?
But yeah, I saw that. I had to talk about it. It was a little bit too just crazy.
Well, at least, he took the time and got to know some people, unlike another cop who just slept with the whole department.
Yeah, well, it just proves that guys have standards still.
And she looks like a mouse. Like, I wouldn't hit that. I'm like, bro.
Okay,
like, yeah.
well, here's the thing. She clearly had a type. Every cop she fucked looked identical to the other cop that she fucked.
She had a type. It's called being a dude and having a dick. Hi, do you have a dick? I sure do. Can I see
They'll be
it?
on a float together at the next Pride Parade. Yeah. I don't know. The cops getting rapey and getting shot by their and then you got cop union people stealing fucking getting caught smuggling fentanyl. You can't get much, and the Dalai Lama's sucking tongue. So beyond, all of that. No, I've been getting more talking more about some diet religious stuff.
You know what they need to do? Let the Boog boys off and make them the police. And then we can make the ANCOMs can do their little Nation of Islam, and let's get data on that and see who works. And primitivists don't need police because we don't have guns or civilization.
Yeah, in other words, you're gonna get killed.
Not necessarily. Hunter-gatherer societies didn't just get killed.
Yeah, tell that to the fucking Indians.
Well, yeah, no,
you could also tell that story to the Alaskan natives. They'll tell you all about how they were enslaved by the Russians.
Can I get John Zerzan on here to talk about anarcho-primitivism?
I have no problem talking with somebody about anarcho-privatism, but the problem is I believe it to be completely a fugazi thing to follow. I don't think it's
a smarter idea than the MAGA
movement. Let me put it this way. You live in a world where you quite literally cannot get rid of the things that are around you that have electrical signals and diodes and contacting influx and all the other things that go into it. I live in a state that is almost uninhabited. There's 730,000 people here, and we are basically, half the size of fucking Australia. So you can look at the landmass and go, okay, let's go to the center of it where there's no people. And you know what? You still find electrical currents and signals and crap everywhere. It also has
Yes.
weird magnetic poles. I don't uh I don't think even the primatist, and this is the problem I have with Teddy K's book, which I've read and enjoy.
You like him.
But the reality is
We-
his book misses a key element, which is human nature. He misses the part where human nature is to build things and create things. And if you attempt to put them in a box and tell them they can no longer do that, they will spin off the handle and kill each other very quickly. And they have for centuries.
I mean, they're doing that. Here's my take. Well, okay, there's a couple takes on this, and I think you can take, different interpretations of what he said. And one thing I'll say is, technology, while yes,
JC, the
people will
tinfoil hat doesn't work anymore, buddy. You're going to need a lot bigger than that. What I'm talking about is, okay, back in the day, there was this concept called grounding, right? Where everybody said you need to have your feet touching the ground, right?
I do that. I do that every morning. I get up and
It's
walk around
actually a
barefoot.
thing that actually does good things for your endorphins and stuff like that. Because
Yes, it lowers cortisol
right, there's a
levels.
lot of reasons why. One of them is that you're grounding your body's electrical charge, right? That's what people talk about. So there's this concept back in the day that comes from Art Bell and shows like that around the tinfoil hat. This concept that you can block out RMF radio waves, things like that with tinfoil, which back then was true. You could, back when those signals were very weak. But those signals are no longer very weak. And the reality is, you could build a full-blown fucking Faraday's cage like you were Better Call Saul's brother, and it wouldn't matter. That shit's still getting to you. It's everywhere. There's no escaping it. You're going to have to breathe fresh air at some point. And so, the reality is like you can't escape it. So the idea of full privatism would only really ever exist if you could have a literal fucking time machine.
Well, I mean, okay. Look, let me make my case for. I think there's a case to be made, but it's a sophisticated case based on this. And I'll send you a presentation on it because it's very good. The guy really does break it down. And as far as I'm concerned, while it's a little bit fringe of a anarchist position, I'd still take it over any statist position. There's tribes like the Hadza. There's still Stone Age tribes that exist that do not have certain problems we have. My argument is this. My argument would specifically be, again, going back to, let's say these globalist institutions fail. NATO fails. BRICS will fail. And BRICS will fail because China's as economically unstable as the U.S. So the heads of these things, to me, are going to fall. I think globalism is always going to fail. So if we get to an anarchist society, then, hey, there are people who want capitalism. Cool. There are people who probably want, decentralized communities. Fine. There are people who don't like civilization or think it has gone too far. Now, ideally, yes, anarcho-primitivists, just like ANCAPs can go, or ANCOMs can go too far in their ideals, to the point where they would say agriculture went too far. If you really go to a hardcore primitivist, they'll say language went too far. But, that's neither here nor there. I think they have some good critiques.
Right.
And
Okay.
I think some green
here's for instance.
Solar Pond,
I'm not
Silworth.
looking this up.
I can invite
I'm
them
not
on.
going to look it up, but I think it's number 34 in Teddy K's book. Is People will get sick, people will die is basically the concept. He's talking about how back in primitive cultures they got diseases and they learned that those diseases were natural and that people were going to die from them and you just had to accept it, right? Here's the problem. You take that concept to a modern culture and you tell them to go back to native subculture, primitive ways of solving those problems, and they're going to laugh and spit in your face, and then they're going to kill you for suggesting it. That's the reality. If you're living in a world where a collapse has happened and you think that suggesting to a populace that the right thing to do is not fix the problems they have and rather ignore them, you're going to end up with your head on a fucking spike. Like that's the way I see it. Because you're seen as vulnerable, you're seen as unable to solve any problems, and you're seen as useless in the grand scale of things because those primitive problem solving skills might be good in an individual status, but the second you try to move towards any kind of center goal with any kind of group of people, that is going to fall apart very quick. And to me, it's a rich, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, but it is sort of um, a rich person's sort of homesteading outlook on liberty, where you go, well, you just have to have the money to buy your own land and create all this system to make sure you can't have your off-grid setup and be away from everybody, because you have to do that to really be self-sustainable in that type of culture and that type of lifestyle. You're going to have to live like that. And the only, again, I live in a state where people travel to all the time to do that exact thing. We have cheap land here. You would need $50,000 to $100,000 to even begin to build an off-grid setup nice enough for you to legitimately do that and split off from some group of people or having to go to the store every couple weeks. So the concept of that is going to be applicable to 0.11111% of all the people. And
Correct.
And that is even a smaller portion of people in the liberty movement who
Correct.
even know what
It's
the fuck you're talking
position.
about.
It's a fringe position. My argument was this, and someone made this point clearly in the comment section, which I liked. He said anarcho-primitivism would be for a very, very, very small subgroup. Like anarchists are this small, and then smaller, and then there's a very small subgroup of anarchists who do that. I still think as anarcho-capitalists, we could facilitate the ability for them to do so, and that's why I'm friends with John Zerzan.
Yeah, no,
And that's why I support. And I also support green anarchists who take it maybe a step further. It's like, okay, fine, we don't want to go full primitivist, but we want to conserve, as least technology as possible. And there's also philosophy called solar punk, which kind of says we want to use technology, but up to this specific point.
right.
So,
No,
but,
I'm all good with it as a theory or concept. I just don't think like I said, I just don't know in practice if something like that is something I view as like functional as much as it is just theory. It's something that's interesting to read about, but I don't know if it's something you can practice without being in a very small subgroup of people.
well, John Zerzan's a very respectable guy. I need to talk to him again. I'd love to get him more people to hear his perspective, because he did coin the term. To me, he's kind of like a Ron Paul in his own.
It'd be an interesting conversation. All right. Well, I think I'm kind of out of topics.
Well, okay. I'm curious about President Elbow Macaroni, because I don't like to say Emmanuel Macron, because some French dude will be like, bro, you're saying it wrong.
Him pushing for the Chinese to negotiate.
Yes, I think that was interesting. And I've been thinking about this, and my answer is probably, after Obama, I'm like, I'll never vote Democrat again. And also, I don't know if we talked about Bobby Kennedy announcing for president, but
no, I actually talked briefly with Tyler when he was on about that.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry. I'd vote for him at this point because Dave Smith hasn't said anything, and he's the best.
No, and Tyler laid out his reasoning too, and no, I don't like RFK as anybody to lead the country. I think he's perfectly great as a sort of pseudo conspiracy theorist, and some of the stuff that he does is very good. His documentary was great, and that kind of stuff. But the reality is, he's not he's not anything close the candidate I would support for president. His opinions on spending, on the environment, on global warming, on immigration stuff.
But he's
He's
good
not.
on. The only reason I like him is because he is actually like. I hate the better candidate when people are war criminals or violence or the but at least he's not pro big pharma and he's not pro military industrial complex. So that's a good start. That can get us that can actually get you forward. I'm not saying it's great, but that actually he is a legitimate better
And I
candidate.
know
Sense.
everybody keeps saying RFK is based on vaccines, but he's knee deep on climate change and other stuff. Yeah. He wasn't based on vaccines to begin with. If you actually look back on his track record on the issue, he started out as somebody who was in support of the whole thing, and then realized what was going on and corrected himself. So it's not like he was perfect. I think people give him credit again because he made these documentaries, wrote books, and talked about this stuff.
Yeah,
Fine, but I
I
think
was wrong too. Like I used to, I switched my opinion on some things based on what happened. I used to have certain opinions about certain things, and then hey, it switched. So that at least, at least one thing I'll say about RFK is this: I feel like unlike DeSantis, Trump, Biden's not there, but at least Bobby Kennedy is like, oh, whoa, this is bad.
yeah,
May
would
I-
I rather see RFK get the nomination over Biden? Absolutely, but I don't think that that'll matter because if Trump's up against either one of them, I think he's going to beat them.
I don't know. Then I'll be like Alvin Bragg. I'm like, this dude did Yemen. I need to arrest him.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I think that's just where we're at. I think it's one of those things where people really need to realize we can't really affect as much of this as we think. His son operated drones for the Ukraine war.
He did.
I don't think he's good on foreign policy as people think. He's probably more of the same. Yeah, and that's sort of where Tyler talked about stuff too. He talked about his takes on COVID stuff to begin with, and that it was more of a narrative shift and things like that. So I'm definitely hesitant to support the guy, but it is what it is him as a candidate.
Well, maybe I'll look more into him. I was seeing some anti-military industrial complex stuff, and I was seeing some pretty like it wasn't just like. I guess the reason I liked what he said is yes, he was based on certain medical procedures, but then he had some very quite coherent criticisms of the MIC, not just like, oh, these wars are bad. I'm Barack Obama. I'll never start. Or Trump, like, man, Iraq was bad. Wasn't it bad? We messed up. We should have taken the oil, though. I'm like, what kind of argument is that? It's like, I shouldn't have broken into my friend's house, but now I did. I'm going to steal all his stuff. People are like, this is a good argument. So if it came down, if Dave Smith does, here's what happened. Here's what I would say. At the end of the day, if it comes down to Trump, RFK, and Mike Matt, I don't know. I might vote for RFK. Is that reasonable?
It's reasonable take.
I'm not going to vote for a cop, and I'm not going to vote for a war criminal and
Yeah.
a farm criminal.
I probably,
So-
if those are my three options, I would probably not vote. I'm being honest. That's where I
because like, and I said the problem is now I like Dave Smith, great guy, everything's awesome, but if he doesn't announce soon, like even for a school board thing, like I'm going out getting signatures a couple months early, and we're doing meetings and stuff, like it's even for like small local races, you got to prepare a little bit in advance, and I'm like, Dave, like, you need to announce, you need to get a war chest. Like, if you don't do it soon, it's going to be too late. You can't just announce in 2020, hey, I guess I have run for president. It's just,
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird situation. We'll have to just wait and see. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna head things off there. That's actually right in an hour, so that's perfect. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Peace.